Hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm Mel Hauser. I use she, they pronouns. I'm the executive director of All Brains Belong. I'm really glad you're here. Let me share screen and get us oriented to our conversation. Except that every time I click something, the window disappears. There we go. So welcome to Nervous System 101. We like to revisit this topic periodically because it's really important. It is, in fact, the foundation of our lives. Before we get going, closed captions are enabled. You just have to turn them on at your end if you'd like to use them. Depending on your version of Zoom, you might see the live transcript closed captioning icon. If not, look for the more ... and choose show subtitles. You can also do the same and choose hide subtitles if you want to turn them off. So if you're new to Brain Club and new to All Brains Belong, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. We are a nonprofit supporting the health and belonging of people with all types of brains, and we do this in lots of different ways, including Brain Club. So you are invited to be part of what we're doing here and be part of our community. Brain Club is our weekly education program for purposes of demonstrating All Brains Belong's approach to neuro-inclusive culture. With the point is to shift broader community awareness of the issues of concern and importance to neurodivergent people in our community, so as to promote new ways of thinking and being in the world, so that then you can take it forth into your lives, and that's how culture change happens. Everybody's welcome at Brain Club. Neurodivergent people, people who support neurodivergent people, people who are exploring their neuro identity, and anyone with any type of brain who wants to learn about neuro-inclusive culture. This is a place where we provide education and model new ways of being in community. We do that through presentations and panels and guest speakers and book chats and a couple other different things we do at Brain Club, so that we can provide a way to better understand neurodivergent experiences. For many, this is a way to feel less alone. You will invariably hear us criticize systems that make it difficult for people to get their needs met, as well as to bright spot alternatives. Though we have other programs where we provide medical advice, this one is not for that. This one is for education purposes only. While we hope that you experience the environment here as supportive, this is not a support group. It's for education purposes only. Feel free to use the chat as we go. We just ask that you use the big box as opposed to the reply threads that make the chat bounce up and down. That would be a lot easier for me and easier for me to reply and see and keep up with your posts and respond to them. So if you could use the big box, that would be a huge help. Thank you so much. There are multiple right ways to participate here at Brain Club in all of our programs. You can have your video on or off. Even if it's on, we don't expect anything of you. Feel free to walk or move or fidget or stim or eat or take breaks or anything else that needs doing. And this is a place where we think about the group's collective needs and oriented around being part of a collective community. We invite you to listen, to learn, to observe what a neuro-inclusive space looks like, or an example of a neuro-inclusive space. You may hear some new words and concepts. Oh, Lizzie, I have an idea. The last time we did this topic, we put it in the Brain Club Digital Resource Library, which has a glossary. Do you think you could find that post of Nervous System 101 and put in the chat in case people want to look up terms as we listen? Thank you. All right, if it's your first time at Brain Club, keep coming back. It might take a few times to figure out the lay of the land. Lizzie's just dropped some frequently asked questions into the chat. A couple of announcements. First thing I want to do is to say thank you to everyone who supported the You're Not Alone campaign. Together, our community raised more than $60,000 to support Brain Club and other free community programs. And so whether you made a gift or you talked about us in your community or you shared our posts on social media, we are so grateful for your help. Another announcement, Brain Club, the podcast launched last week. So this is a new thing for 2026. And Lizzie, if you can drop the link in the chat, but here it is. Brain Club the podcast. And so we won't be putting all episodes because it's like really hard and takes a long time and is like cognitively really laborious. But probably maybe about once a month we will convert Brain Clubs into podcast format. You can continue to access the full recording from every Brain Club, the video recording that'll always be up on the website, and I will always get sent out a week after our episodes. But excited to share this with you. Here we are, new month, new theme. So we're going to be diving into the nervous system all month long. And so we'll set the foundations today with Nervous System 101 so that we can have a shared vocabulary to use together throughout the month. And then we'll hear from a panel of our community members next week talking about what it's been like to come to understand their nervous systems. Then you'll hear from our staff talking about what it's like to understand our nervous systems at work and what do we do when we get dysregulated at work, which is, a pretty frequent event because we're human beings. We all get dysregulated. And then the last week of the month, we don't have a regular Brain Club meeting. We have our third annual Everything is Connected to Everything, Improving the Healthcare of Autistic and ADHD Adults webinar with a focus on the autonomic nervous system. Lizzie's got a link for that in the chat. So that's a separate registration with a separate Zoom link. So that's it. So Tuesday, January 27th, we hope that you will join us. All right, here we go. I'm going to play a pre-recorded presentation of me talking. I'm going to switch and play that video, run about 19 minutes, and then we'll have time for discussion. Stop share. And reshare with the sound. Oh, thanks for putting the glossary. That's wonderful. All right, so our Brain Club Advisory Board thought it was important to revisit this topic because at Brain Club, we are often using this word, dysregulated, or referring to dysregulation. Like, what does it even mean? So sometimes if people have ever thought about this word, they're like, maybe you're thinking regulation means being calm. It is not what regulation means. Some people ever feel calm. I don't think I personally ever experienced like the word calm. That's not a word that really resonates with me. What regulation means is that your brain and the rest of your nervous system, your body, like it's all working together smoothly. Everything's kind of working the way you need it to work so that you can achieve the things you're trying to do. For example, if I am trying to make Brain Club slides, but I am dysregulated and my thoughts are going too quickly and like my attention is not here, it's like hard for me to execute my task. That's like a lot of the day for me and for many people. So it's not calm. We're not striving for calm. We're striving for your energy, the way your brain and nervous system are working. We're looking for that to be a match with what you're trying to do. That's what regulation means. And in fact, a really great resource for this, and I have a slide about this later, but a great resource, Lizzie, if you can drop a link to Autism Level Up in the chat, I think the folks at Autism Level Up have put together a robust collection of resources about regulation. It's really universal design for nervous system regulation, and I could not say enough amazing things. Anyway, so like we'll come back to that. But I think if you want to learn more about what this word even means and how you might like feel it or experience it,
That's a really good resource. But we're also going to talk about that tonight. What dysregulation looks like or feels like is different for different people. I think if I started screaming and like overtly flipping my lid and throwing things and swearing or whatever, like you might be able to tell that I'm not regulated. I don't have full access to the thinking part of my brain, for example. But that's not the only way in which dysregulation presents. It might present as flight. I'm running away. Physically or cognitively, I might be like fleeing a conversation or avoiding a conversation. I might present as flood of ideas, flood of emotions, overwhelm. Might present as fatigue, cognitive, physical, emotional fatigue, freezing, glazing over, checking out, dissociating, freeze, or fawn, people pleasing as a survival strategy. All of these are equivalent manifestations of dysregulation. So it's not like one of them is more dysregulated than the other. It's just sometimes we have go-to patterns of dysregulation. Sometimes it depends on what context we're in. Like when I'm at home, I'm much more likely to yell at someone. But at work, I might be presenting as like fatigue or flood. So learning to recognize dysregulation in yourself and in other people is a really important skill and takes lots of practice. What is even actually happening at the level of the nervous system? So your autonomic nervous system, it's the part of your nervous system that like governs all of your internal body processes. Your heartbeat, your blood pressure, your digestion. Its role really is to help you store, release, conserve energy to like move safely through your life and get done what you're trying to get done. And sometimes it can feel like a great mystery and like it seems random and unpredictable, which can feel really scary for people. And it actually is like often is a predictable set of nervous system responses. It's just that when we don't have a framework for understanding that, we don't know how to work with it. A really great book, Lizzie, if you can drop the link to Anchored by Deb Dana, that's actually the book that we're going to do book chat on at the end of the month. Our last week of the month's usually a book chat. And we're going to be covering that book covering the autonomic nervous system in more detail. But the concept being these are automatic responses designed to help you store, release, conserve energy, and keep you safe. So when we have dysregulation responses, they're automatic safety seeking responses. Automatic responses. We don't get to pick what dysregulates us, and we don't get to pick how we show up. So in Deb Dana's book, Anchored, they walk through the concept of neuroception, and some of you may have, we talk about neuroception a lot at Brain Club. So neuroception is threat detection versus safety detection, the part of the autonomic nervous system that is picking up cues from the environment. I'm safe, I'm in danger. And this can look different ways. When cues of safety are in the environment, this evokes a ventral vagal response. That's the vagus nerve. It's one of your cranial nerves, goes through your whole body. It has a big role in the autonomic nervous system. This part, you pick up the safety and you feel connected, safe. This is the part that like allows you to socially engage with other people. But a lot of environments we're in do not feel safe because they're not safe. So, when the sympathetic nervous system recognizes danger and is in a place of activation, mobilization, taking action to stay safe, to flee the dangerous environment, to get out of there, to return to safety. If that is exceeded, so we're in the danger zone, it's even worse than that. It's kind of like the mouse that plays dead. That's what dorsal vagal is. That's like immobilized, shut down, collapsing. I am in a life-threatening environment. I am collapsing. That is how I conserve energy and try to stay safe. And so one of the things that we'll talk about during book chat is like what it's like for the nervous system to like move through these three stages. But just wanted to give a first pass at this. What I'll also mention, and this is what next week is about, is that the nervous system is not like a standalone thing. The nervous system like goes through all of your organ systems. So neurodivergent people often suffer from a constellation of intertwined medical problems, much of which involves the autonomic nervous system. So it involves lots of systems in the body, but including the nervous system may also impact sleep or the jaw and the face or the digestive system or the allergy or immunology system, the immune system, connective tissue. It's all intertwined. And so at next week's webinar, we are going to be looking at this pattern of intertwined medical problems that many neurodivergent people suffer from, often for decades, without like having a lens for understanding, because this lens is not taught in the medical education system. It's not like a well-known concept. So we're going to be looking at that, as well as digging into some tools about how people can get the healthcare that they need if they think this pattern applies to them. And as well as we're going to be looking at some of our approaches here to management and like how to feel better from these things next week. I mentioned this. So first off, actually, Lizzie, if you could redrop in the chat the registration link for next week. Again, it's a different Zoom from Brain Club. Your Brain Club Zoom will not take you there. It's completely separate. It is also free, but it is a separate link. Needs registration separately. Thanks, Lizzie. Why I mention that is because the autonomic nervous system is commonly impacted by that constellation of intertwined medical problems. And so people might get symptoms related to the autonomic nervous system that impact, the way their eyes function and their brain. They may have things like migraine or other types of headache syndromes or brain fog or breathing symptoms or cardiovascular symptoms. Their heart's racing or their blood pressure is messed up, or maybe they're having trouble with, peeing and pooping and all the other things, all these automatic things that the nervous system is just supposed to do. When you have this constellation of intertwined medical problems, you may have an autonomic nervous system that is having a hard time. Yeah, Martha, to your comment, that explains so much for so many people, because this is common. In our medical practice, 97% of our autistic and ADHD adults suffer from this constellation of intertwined medical problems. It's really, really common. That's not to say that all autistic and ADHD people suffer from this. It's just to say that the people that come to All Brains Belong for medical care, they suffer from this, because in general, people don't come here if their needs were met by the traditional healthcare system. So of that group, 97%. We also talk a lot at Brain Club about neurodivergent burnout. Burnout being the state of profound physical and mental exhaustion caused by living in a world that's not designed for your needs, and chronically having those needs not met, chronically having the demands of your life exceed your capacity. And what that's going to do is it's going to trigger the autonomic nervous system. It's going to trigger that neuroception. So if you're in burnout, it may be really hard to get out of burnout if you don't develop an awareness and understanding of your autonomic nervous system. Everything's connected to everything. We also talk at Brain Club a lot about shame. Shame, Brene Brown defines as the profoundly painful experience of feeling defective and deficient. And we talk a lot at Brain Club about shame because it's so common. And that's the idea, if you don't have a narrative for understanding your access needs, and that when you struggle, the fact that it's like related to unmet access needs, if you think it's like related to you and something being wrong with you, and of course that's like what so many people think, because you've never been so Michelle, Brain Club's always recorded, so you'll have access to the recording if you want to rewatch this. So with the idea that by having a lens for understanding what this is, recognizing shame, naming it, because almost always someone says, me too, I've been through this too. And then when you have your experience of having this thing that you experience shame and secrecy around, when you recognize that you're not alone and that other people go through this, um, that is transformative for so many people. When we are in a place of shame, that in and of itself triggers the autonomic nervous system, triggers the automatic fight or flight, keep you alive parts of the brain. So when you are in a space of shame, when you are in a space of isolation, when you think you're the only one, how would you not be dysregulated? So again, coming full circle here, dysregulation is what happens because of all the things I just told you. Your environment is unsafe, and your autonomic nervous system, your neuroception system sounds the alarm, and you think it's your fault, and you think you're the only one. So what do we do at Brain Club? We try to shine a light on this so that you recognize that you're not the only one. With the idea then of understanding that when we are dysregulated, and again, we all get dysregulated, when we are dysregulated, we don't have full access to the thinking part of the brain, the part that connects, the part that perspective takes and communicates, and like all the things. When we are in a state of dysregulation, it is impossible in that moment to intentionally perspective shift and connect with other people. We just have to ride it out until regulation returns. This is a book I also really like called Self-Reg by Dr. Stuart Shanker. Dr. Shanker walks through like the science of regulation, but then with the idea being that when you can recognize dysregulation in yourself or others, you do nothing, you just recognize it, you let it pass. Later on, another time, you can then wonder, like, why did dysregulation happen? What was it in the environment that brought that out? So that you can identify the stressor and reduce it next time. One of the main concepts of the book is that dysregulated behavior is the nervous system's way of communicating to the people around you what the underlying physiology is at the point in time. That is, behavior is communication. You can't do the work of being like, why am I dysregulated while you're dysregulated? Doesn't work like that, because when the limbic system, that fight or flight automatic, in this model from The Whole Brain Child by Dr. Dan Siegel and Dr. Tina Bryson, they call the limbic system downstairs brain. They call the thinking part of the brain upstairs brain. When downstairs brain is triggered for any reason, it takes upstairs brain offline. So the idea of the part of the brain that's going to be like, why? I wonder why I'm dysregulated. That's an upstairs brain move. If you are in a place of downstairs brain, if you are dysregulated, you literally cannot answer the question, why am I dysregulated? So it's not useful to wonder and do that analysis in the moment. You wait, you let it pass, think about it tomorrow or later in the week. In our medical practice, we often really strive to model neutral language. Instead of being like, I'm having a meltdown. I mean, it's okay, you can use whatever language you want, but like, I'm having a meltdown sometimes has some connotations. My autonomic nervous system is activated. That may have less connotations. You may have some less self-judgment with language like that. My autonomic nervous system is activated. Or I'm having a survival response. Or even my body is trying to send me a message. I don't know what that message is yet because I'm in a state of dysregulation, but there's some kind of message being sent here. That's all. And then later, more sophisticated move might be like, I am in the sympathetic nervous system state, the sympathetic activation state, or the dorsal vagal state, or like, we'll talk about that at book chat later in the month. But like, neutral language we are striving for. And neutral interventions. So Lizzie, if you can drop again, Autism Level Up. I know there's been a bunch of links, but I highly recommend this one. So they have a lot of free tools, including this one called the energy meter, which the idea is there's on one side, it's my energy where I am versus energy needed for the activity I'm trying to do. And, emotion words may not mean something. I'm upset, I'm mad, I'm whatever. Like those words may not mean anything, but like it's more energy is more of a descriptive thing of like, yeah, I might have jumpy energy and I really want like settled and still energy because I'm like trying to knit or cook dinner or something. So then it's about managing my energy. It's not like, how can I change my emotions or how do I change my thoughts? This is really just about how do I manage my nervous system? How do I regulate my nervous system? So that just so that I'm able to do what I'm trying to do, not because there's, any right or wrong type of energy to have. And sometimes folks are like, I have no idea what I could possibly do to regulate my energy. I don't know what the choices are. This tool is called the Regulator 2.0. It's this robust menu for with ideas of like, listen to music, sing favorite song. They kind of like organize it by your sensory system. So this is all sound stuff. This one's vision, look at a this or a that, taste, smell, like a lot of different ideas for how do you use your sensory systems. And then you can keep track. Did this change my energy at all? And did I actually like it? If I don't like it, I'm not going to do it again.
All right, so we will pause here. I would love to hear from anyone. Is there anything that's standing out to you or anything that you'll be taking away from this conversation? Everything. I love that, Anne. My body is telling me something. Oh, I love that. I'm glad the book suggestions have been helpful. See in the chat, understanding you're about to become dysregulated and interrupting that pattern is Jedi level meditation for humans. Yeah, no, I mean, so it's about learning what your earliest signs of dysregulation are. Like, for example, for me, before Brain Club was starting, I was commenting to our team. I was like, "It's really cold in here." Like, I mean, it's probably cold in here, but it also might be like that is how my autonomic nervous system is showing up. Like, I don't like necessarily have awareness of being just like super dysregulated right now, but maybe I think my coldness um in my 42 years, I think I've seen that before, that my dysregulation shows up as temperature changes. The Y is for later, Weaver. I love that. Looking for the energy meter and the options tool. Yeah, so if you go onto the Autism Level Up website and you click tools, you can browse all of their free resources. Emily says, I learn something new every time I take in this information. There are so many levels of understanding. Absolutely. Fiona says, always the shame piece, which trips us into dysregulation. A 1000%. So hard to change that condition pattern. Yeah, I mean, I I can only speak for my own self, but it's just the idea of being around other people who get dysregulated and talk about it. Like before All Brains Belong, I honestly didn't know other people who spoke about the reality of being a human being with a human nervous system. And the reality of that is that we all get dysregulated. But I had um, never seen that. Yeah, there's a question in the chat. The recordings from Brain Club always go out to everyone who's registered. They go out about a week afterwards. Hi, Sarah.
I know people love the word dysregulation, and it's become a really common word. I just for from my perspective, the nervous system is, I mean, the my body is always regulating itself, and what my body is often my conscious mind and my body often disagree about about what about what we are about what the appropriate level of regulation or what the appropriate level of energy is for, what I often find is that my the regulation fits with how, I mean, it tells me about how important, the higher I, like, I can't lie to myself. I mean, part of me is trying to tell me this thing isn't, I should be a certain way, and it's it's telling me how important this task. I'm not saying this quite right, but it's telling me, like, what's happening in my body is telling me exactly how important some part of me thinks this task is. And so the higher my activation, the higher some part of me thinks, the higher, the more I care about the task. And that's probably just what you already spent your time saying here. But I think it's a really good, guide, because it's that mismatch is not really a mismatch. It's one part of me is trying to tell me I'm not supposed to be one way, and another part of me is saying this is exactly how you're supposed to be, given how important you think this task is. Anyway.
I love that. No, I think that, and a lot of times when we hear the dis, like disorder, dis whatever, it's like dis is bad. This is the nervous system's way of communicating. It's not bad. It's like, thanks so much, nervous system, for trying to keep me alive. This is really important, and this is the only way I'm going to notice. Is whether it is, whether it's a direct nervous system response, or, and we'll talk about this at the webinar, the interaction between the nervous system and the immune system. Like, honestly, I would never pay attention to my mast cells, my part of my immune system. I would never pay attention unless my mast cells reacted in really extreme ways. And it's really important because the thing that they're reacting to is like really bad for me. So anyway, that. And I agree, Weaver. The more important it is, the higher level of the nervous system response, because it's important. Yeah, Sierra.
Yeah, I really appreciate what you said, Sarah, and I really I think I it's the word that's coming to mind for me more is like tension, more than dysregulation, or more than like mismatch. And I think that something that, sorry, I'm getting distracted by the chat. I'm thinking I'm thinking one of the other really important things that brings up for me, Sarah, is that there's not like a state of dysregulation and a state of regulation. It's not a binary thing, and that we're always in a process of regulating, and we're always in that process of kind of like finding some homeostasis wherever that is, kind of, and thinking about it as a continuous process versus like two states that you're trying to get into, one or the other. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and the goal is not like when you move away from that like binary state, like you're not moving toward regulation. You're like just becoming more aware and more familiar of how your nervous system responds to things, both external things and internal things. And it's just, yeah, this is a clue about what I really need right now. And then being curious about that, so that you can ultimately, move toward designing a life where you can move in and out of these different nervous system states. And the way that Autism Level Up describes this is like all energy is okay. But it's like I'm trying to do a thing and I need something else while I'm trying to do this thing, as opposed to while I'm trying to do some other thing. And just being familiar with like a toolbox of the different ways that, my nervous system can access supports.
If I could add to that, something I love about that framing as well is the idea that it's not always that you have to change your energy state. Sometimes you have to change the activity. And the idea that you need to match those, and it doesn't always have to be one direction.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just to the comment in the chat, quote, regulated is the new quote, nice. Yeah. I mean, I think that part of neuronormative ableist society is that we get the message that we're supposed to be quote, nice and quote, calm and quote, all these things that really is not based in the science of the nervous system. The science of the nervous system is that the nervous system reacts. And a lot of times we've been socialized that it's not safe to show up in the full scope of nervous system states. And so, we get shamed as kids and through the course of our lives that, that showing up a certain way is part of the mask. It's an involuntary survival reaction, which is why regulation and the way the nervous system shows up, it is often contextual. When I'm around safe people, I'm much more likely to cry. I'm much more likely to yell. I'm much more likely to, not be masking my nervous system state. Michelle.
Good evening. Thank you for calling on me. Yeah, what you were just saying about how that needs to be, or that it's expected to be the norm. I often think about the larger picture, and I look at patterns and stuff, and it seems like the the way society is formed is because it's always been like this exploitation thing, like the British colonizing everywhere, and so it's like the people who are in power try to exploit everyone else, yet by being that way, by being like a tyrant or a narcissist, or just exploiting people, causes our nervous systems to go into dysregulation. And when they go into dysregulation, we get punished for that. I read a lot of, or watch and read and watch a lot of stuff about the Dickinsonian Great Britain times, and the people who have the money and the power are expecting everyone to act polite, and they call the people who aren't polite commoners or vulgars. They call them vulgars.
Well, yeah.
And but it's because they're setting the society up to get everyone all stressed out from being treated that way. It's weird how they made it that way deliberately so that they could have advantage, and then they punish us, and so it will never, we never get to get our head above water.
Yeah, and we talk about intersectional oppression at Brain Club all the time. This is what happens, and which is why we talk about, building a world that works for everyone. Because when we're not aware of these power dynamics, and when people don't have access to have their needs met, of course the nervous system is going to respond. Of course it is. Because what you're describing, whether we're talking about both a long time ago and in present day 2026, this is not safe. Sierra?
Right. And the people who are expecting us to behave that way, their lives they've got it so easy. There's no reason for them to ever have a nervous system go into dysregulation, because they've set themselves up as, like the 1% or whatever. They're the ones on top of the pecking order. So
Yeah.
they don't have any clue what we feel.
Yeah, and Michelle, I'm gonna move along to Sierra.
Sure.
And I wonder if Sierra, if you want to speak to that.
Yeah. For me, it's really tying to trying to find where it was in the chat. I think Reba said it. Bullying can look like somebody targeting your nervous system for the reliable reaction. And that idea of it is so exhausting to, if I have reactions on a scale of 1 to 10, it's exhausting to try to keep myself in a 3 to 5 range all the time. And that idea of just how much we live in a world where our expectation is to be in such a limited range of kind of reaction and expression of emotions and all of that.
Yeah, and Sierra, I'm gonna also introduce what Alvar said in the chat, just basically yes, all nervous system states are okay, and sometimes when we get dysregulated, there are consequences for us, not because of social interactions and shame and the way other people treat us, but really describing like I get so upset and then, maybe I move in a certain way or I injured myself in a different way. And I think like all of that is true. Like all of this is true and all of this is valid. Weaver.
Hi, yeah, I was actually thinking something similar to Albert, of how like I'm just noticing in my past year of getting to know my nervous system and understanding dysregulation as a reaction, like, that sometimes the dysregulated response gets all of, it's like it hijacks the conversation, and like the actual thing that probably wasn't okay that caused the dysregulation, it gets lost. And I'm also noticed that with different processing types, like I'm a very fast processor, and um like that when I get dysregulated, my dysregulation can be so dysregulating to others, that like there's not a way through, other than co-regulation or taking space. It took me a long time to get to that. I really wanted the why, and I had a lot of issues with like over explaining and getting and needing explanations. But now I'm leaning more into the space and like letting the space kind of hold us, and allow our nervous systems to settle, like, and yeah, letting go of that need to know was a really big part of it.
Yeah, and I think that like that it's almost like medicalization of like in the same way that you're describing letting go of the need to know. I think that also that's how many people move in their journey of understanding their health, of like what is the one thing? What is the thing? Is this thing my nervous system? Is it my immune system? Is it this? It's like it's all your systems. Your body is reacting to things. Sarah.
I just really appreciate the discussion, and I think one of the things that's prompting for me is just this idea that so much of the time, so much of what's happened, my what gets called dysregulation, or what or the my activation, or my really difficult states, the difficult to handle body states um are are really telling me, or they come up when something is happening that isn't good for human beings. And 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 it's really interesting because we, well, like, our best capacity as a human being is a really, I mean, as at best we are able to support each other and reason things, and think things through. And so if we treated these states as valid, right now we're sort of dismissing them and trying to tell, or we're often, the response is to dismiss people, to dismiss them, to try to shove them under the rug, to try to tell people not to have them, to try to calm people down, and try to just get them to go away so that they're not seen they're not in public sight. And but but if we actually took a different approach, um we would, and we wanted to understand what was happening, that we would get there's so much information value in those activated states. And our current approach of trying to get rid of them is we're losing all of that information value that we could be getting as a species about what is good or bad for human beings, that these states are trying to tell us. And so that's where, that's like this, the our growth as a species is being stunted by how we're currently, by how so many of us have been taught to react to these states. And I look forward to the day where more and more that transition happens, where we're supporting each other to figure out what's going on, rather than shutting each other down and telling each other we should just need to, get with the program and not react.
Totally, because if we're really paying attention, we would have nervous system responses because there's so much in the world that is unsafe. And that's the information. Our nervous systems are giving us information. Amy.
I just keep thinking about All Brains Belong community, and how, I came in to this community years ago, really masked and very dysregulated, but still trying to like appear not dysregulated. And so how many years it's worked, but I think what am feeling right now is that this community has allowed me to be dysregulated, like foot on the gas, or really hot and flushing and embarrassed, and that I've been able to come back and know myself differently, because I think that if we've a lot of us have been masked and afraid, and our nervous systems have been dysregulated or mismatched, or even overreacting because we're scanning for threat all the time in maybe a way that we don't have to be scanning for threat all the time, when we have co-regulation and we have community where we can be that, to see different places that everyone has been walking on their own, and learning from staff here. But I just think about how I came in, and it doesn't mean like I'm dysregulated and regulated, and like what Sarah Knudsen was saying, like, yeah, I just see it as information of like, oh, my body is activated right now. I don't think I feel safe. Well, how do I get to safety? Or who could I check in? Like even like I didn't have the link tonight, and I was starting to flip my lid. I like immediately, text Sarah Wilkins like, I can't get the link. I can't get the link. And then it's just like, oh, just to see I can have that response, and then someone's there on the other end. And I feel like I could even come in here in a way and been like, that was so hard, and it been validated, instead of like, why weren't you prepared, or why you're too sensitive, or any number of things I would have gotten in different environments. Here I feel like I just still want to come. I still want to be here, even when I might not be like what culture would say is like a perfect state. And so I just want to thank you for providing this space for us to learn and to understand that we're okay, even when we're afraid, even when we're dysregulated, even when sensorily we're overloaded, whatever is happening for us, like it's okay to still be here together.
Oh, that is so beautiful, Mimi. Thank you. Yeah, and I mean, I think that like we have created this space together, like everyone in the community, like even energetically contributes to the community. And I think that's like this radical experiment of showing up with your nervous system, however it is. That's the point. That's the point. And the more we, you know, the more we model that for folks who have not been in spaces like that, the more then I think, like speaking only for myself, like this community has taught me that this is possible. And so why would I put up with anything else? So I think that happens too. And so with that, thank you all so much for being part of our community, and thank you for being part of this conversation. And we will continue this conversation next week as we hear from our panelists. I think all of our panelists, almost all of our panelists are here right now, which is pretty cool. Anyway, we will look forward to learning from their experiences next week. And so with that, thank you all so much, and have a good week. Bye.